Ice storms feel colder than most people expect. Even if the temperature doesn't look extreme, the cold seems to creep in faster and deeper. Clothes that usually work in winter suddenly stop helping. People feel chilled indoors, in cars, and even after adding more layers. This happens because ice storms create a very specific kind of cold. It's not dry snow and not sharp wind. It's freezing rain, moisture, stillness, and surfaces that constantly pull heat away from the body. In regions where cold weather is rare, clothing is usually chosen for occasional chilly days, not for long periods of damp, icy conditions. During an ice storm, warmth isn't about looking bundled up. It's about how fabrics interact with moisture, pressure, and inactivity. Understanding this difference helps explain why people feel cold, even when they're technically dressed for winter. Why ice storms drain body heat faster than snow. Snow is cold, but it's surprisingly dry. Ice storms are different. Freezing rain adds moisture to the air, to surfaces, and often to clothing itself. Even small amounts of dampness make the body lose heat much faster than dry cold ever would. Moisture breaks down insulation quietly. Fabrics that trap air in dry conditions stop working as well once that air becomes humid or unstable. Heat escapes faster, and the body struggles to maintain a comfortable temperature. This is why ice storms often feel colder than snowy days with the same temperature. Another factor is contact. Icy conditions mean more time spent sitting, leaning, or staying indoors. Heat loss increases through constant contact with cold surfaces like chairs, floors, and car seats. Snowy weather often involves movement. Ice storms create stillness, and stillness makes heat harder to keep. Why sitting still is the biggest mistake during an ice storm. During an ice storm, people move less without realizing it. Roads are dangerous, power may be out, and daily routines slow down. The body shifts into a low-activity state, producing less heat overall. This alone makes staying warm much harder. When you sit still, circulation slows slightly, especially in the legs and lower back. Warmth becomes concentrated in the core, while extremities cool down faster. Clothing that relies on movement to feel warm suddenly fails. Thick layers feel heavy but ineffective. This is why people feel cold even indoors during ice storms. The problem isn't always the temperature. It's inactivity combined with heat loss through contact and moisture. Fabrics that work during movement don't automatically work during stillness. Ice storms expose that difference very quickly. Why bulky winter clothes fail during ice storms. During an ice storm, many people instinctively reach for the thickest, puffiest clothes they own. Big jackets, heavy sweaters, layered hoodies, anything that looks warm. But bulky clothing often performs worse in icy conditions, especially indoors or while sitting. The main reason is compression. When you sit on a couch, in a car, or even lean against a wall, thick fabrics get flattened. The air they rely on for insulation is pushed out, and warmth escapes faster than expected. What felt warm while standing suddenly stops working. Bulky layers also trap moisture more easily. Freezing rain, damp air, and indoor humidity all add moisture to fabric. Once thick materials become even slightly damp, their insulation breaks down quickly. Instead of holding heat, they start pulling it away from the body. Ice storms punish clothing that relies on size and volume. They reward fabrics that stay effective under pressure and moisture. That's why more clothing often feels colder than expected during icy weather. Why thin base layers work better than expected. Thin base layers don't look impressive, but they behave very differently in ice storm conditions. Instead of relying on bulk, they work by staying close to the skin and creating a stable microclimate. This becomes especially important when the body isn't moving much. Because thin fabrics don't compress easily, they continue to function when you sit or lean back. Heat loss slows down instead of accelerating. The fabric moves with the body and maintains consistent contact, which helps preserve warmth over time. Another advantage is moisture control. Thin base layers handle small amounts of dampness better, spreading moisture instead of letting it collect. This prevents sudden cooling and keeps body temperature more stable in humid, icy air. During an ice storm, warmth isn't about feeling instantly cozy. It's about staying evenly warm for hours. Thin base layers support that kind of quiet, steady comfort far better than heavy outer pieces. Natural versus synthetic fabrics during freezing rain. During an ice storm, the difference between natural and synthetic fabrics becomes much more noticeable. Natural fibers such as wool or cotton tend to manage cold in a slower, more stable way. They don't react dramatically to temperature changes, but they also don't lose warmth as quickly once conditions turn damp. Synthetic fabrics are often designed for active use, hiking, sports, or outdoor movement. In freezing rain, that reactivity can work against you. These materials respond quickly to moisture and temperature shifts, which can create a cycle of brief warmth followed by cooling. When the body is still, that cycle becomes uncomfortable. Moisture plays a major role here. Even indoors, icy air increases humidity, and clothes absorb small amounts of dampness. Natural fibers handle this more gently, spreading moisture without collapsing insulation immediately. Synthetics tend to either repel moisture unevenly or trap it in specific areas, increasing heat loss. During an ice storm, stability matters more than performance. Fabrics that change slowly tend to feel warmer overall, especially during long periods of sitting or limited movement. Why moisture control matters more than insulation in icy weather. Ice storms are wet by nature. Freezing rain, damp air, and temperature swings mean your clothes are constantly dealing with moisture, even if you never step outside. This moisture quietly undermines insulation long before fabric feels wet to the touch. When moisture builds up near the skin, heat loss accelerates. The body has to work harder to maintain temperature, which is difficult during inactivity. Thick insulation alone can't solve this problem if moisture is allowed to collect and cool the skin. Fabrics that manage moisture well help prevent sudden drops in warmth. They absorb, spread, or release moisture gradually instead of letting it concentrate in one place. This keeps the microclimate near the body more stable and reduces that deep, uncomfortable chill people associate with ice storms. In icy conditions, staying warm isn't just about trapping heat. It's about preventing moisture from quietly pulling warmth away, while everything looks fine on the surface. Why windproof layers matter even without strong wind. During an ice storm, it may not feel windy, but wind exposure still exists. Air moves constantly around buildings through door gaps and inside cars. This subtle airflow increases heat loss, especially when clothes allow cold air to pass through easily. Windproof fabrics slow down this invisible exchange. They don't make you warmer by themselves, but they protect the warmth your body is already producing. Without a wind-resistant layer, cold air replaces warm air near the skin again and again, even indoors or inside a vehicle. This is especially important during freezing rain, when damp air penetrates clothing more easily. Windproof layers reduce that penetration and help maintain a stable temperature. They work quietly in the background, preventing heat loss rather than creating warmth. In ice storm conditions, wind protection isn't about outdoor gusts. It's about controlling airflow in an environment where even small air movements can make cold feel much worse. Fabrics that lose warmth when wet or pressed. Not all fabrics handle moisture and pressure well. Some materials lose most of their insulating ability once they become damp or compressed. During an ice storm, this combination is common. Sitting, leaning, and exposure to humid air all happen at once. When fabric fibers absorb water or flatten under pressure, air pockets collapse. Heat escapes rapidly, and the fabric begins to feel cold instead of protective. This effect often goes unnoticed until discomfort sets in gradually. Other fabrics are more resilient. They maintain structure even when damp and resist complete compression. These materials don't stay perfectly warm, but they slow heat loss and give the body time to adapt. Understanding which fabrics fail under wet pressure helps explain why people feel cold even when fully dressed. Ice storms don't just test warmth. They expose weaknesses in how materials handle moisture and contact. Why cars and cold homes change what you should wear. Ice storms often force people to spend long hours indoors or in cars, both of which behave very differently from outdoor environments. Cars cool down quickly when parked, and even with the heater on, large surfaces like seats, doors, and windows constantly pull heat away from the body. Homes in regions not used to ice storms often lose heat faster than expected, especially during power outages. In these environments, clothing is under constant pressure. You sit, lean back, or rest against furniture for long periods. Fabrics that rely on loft or movement stop working. Heat loss happens through contact rather than air temperature alone. This is why outfits that feel fine outside can feel inadequate inside. The environment changes the rules. Clothing needs to perform well under stillness, pressure, and long exposure, not just cold air. Dressing for balance, not maximum warmth. During an ice storm, the goal isn't to feel as warm as possible. It's to stay stable. Overheating leads to sweating, and sweat leads to faster cooling. Underheating creates constant discomfort. Both extremes make cold harder to manage. The best clothing choices reduce heat loss without forcing warmth. They work quietly without dramatic temperature swings. When fabrics manage moisture, pressure, and airflow well, the body can maintain comfort with less effort. If your clothes feel forgettable, they're probably working. You're not constantly adjusting layers or noticing cold spots. In ice storm conditions, that quiet balance is what real warmth actually feels like.